Thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Daniel Sellon. I'm the chair of the Staff Association. I'd like to welcome you all here on behalf of the SA. I'd also like to welcome all our speakers. Thanks for joining us today. This is a collaboration between the Staff Association, notably Gerald, who initiated this event, and teaming up with the World Bank Family Network. We're doing so because this is it's partially a family issue and it's partially a staff issue. None of us can turn on the TV these days or look at Facebook without seeing some form of racial expressions of bigotry or racism or intolerance. And unfortunately, this is also happening more so than ever at our schools, even primary schools. So we thought this was a great opportunity to discuss openly the issues of bullying, harassment, and intolerance and racism, and discuss about what that has meant for our families, but more concretely what we can do about it. And these are the sort of things that I'd like to take away, and I know many of you would also too. What can we do about this? I'm a parent myself of two girls. They're grown now, but I know I know that the pain and the helplessness that comes from having a child who is a victim of bullying, and so it'd be great to know that we are not alone in this. There are people, there is the school system, and our family support there to help us with this. Okay, so again, I'd like to thank Gerald and also the World Bank Family Network for hosting this event. Thank you. I'll pass it over.
Thank you, Daniel. Good afternoon. My name is Shaheen Khan, and on behalf of the Family Network, I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you so much to the panelists for joining us today. The Family Network provides a wide range of programs, information, and resources to help you navigate life as a World Bank Group family in Washington, D.C., and over 50 country office locations worldwide. You may follow us on our Facebook page at the World Bank Family Network or on our website, WBFN.org, to learn more about all that we offer to support bank families. Please note that this seminar is being recorded just like many of our other seminars, and it will be available soon on our YouTube channel. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for our panel discussion today, Jennifer Love. Jennifer currently serves as the English Language Family Engagement Instructional Specialist in the Office of Interpreting and Translation at the Office of Diversity in Prince George's County Public Schools. Her journey in education has led her to serve in various school-based and central office leadership roles in which she has connected with staff, motivated students, and encouraged parental engagement, especially within the international community. Jennifer is committed to increasing international parent education and family engagement to positively impact student achievement, and one of her initiatives was recently recognized by the White House Initiative for Educational Excellence for Hispanics as a national bright spot in Hispanic education. Dedicated to elevating family engagement, Jennifer served on the core team with the Maryland State Department of Education to create the state's first pre-K-12 family engagement framework. Devoted to equal access to education and family engagement, she presently serves as president of the Maryland ELL Family Involvement Network, MELFIN, and also on the board of the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium, MAEC. Jennifer is also a doctoral student in culturally and linguistically responsive educational leadership in special education through the U.S. Department of Education at the Office of Special Education. She lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband and 3 sons. Jennifer will then introduce our other panelists. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer and our 4 panelists today.
Good morning, and thank you, Shaheen, and also a special thank you to the World Bank Family Network and all of you who have taken your time to come here this morning. We are all parents in the room, are we? All parents in the room. And we're here because we love our children and we want the best for our children. And we know that oftentimes our children can be placed in situations that we feel we can't control, as Daniel mentioned. But we, as a team here, are here to be able to share what we hope to be some very valuable knowledge relative to the school system and school system policies and procedures, and also some really strong information about strategies that you can work with your children at home. And we also have some specialists here with relative to school psychology and how we can really help students who are experiencing traumas or who have experienced traumas. We know that in school systems today, as we face truly changing and challenging times, we do see microaggressions that are happening, and sometimes those microaggressions can be hard to capture, can be hard for staff members to really categorize in those larger umbrellas of bullying and harassment, but we know that they're happening and we know that they're impacting our children. So that's going to also be part of our discussion today. We'd like to begin with kind of surveying the room. How many of you have children who are early childhood level? So essentially 5 years old or below? That would be me. Okay. How about students who are in elementary school? Elementary school, K through 5 or K through 6? Okay. And then middle school or junior high? Okay. And then high school, high schoolers. Oh, bless you all. Okay. University. Oh, yes, yes. Post-secondary. And so you've survived that road. Okay. So we'd like to begin taking some, so we have that inventory of the levels that are represented. So we'd like to begin by taking inventory of some of the experiences that you've had as a parent. So if in the past month, I'm going to read out a phrase and ask if in the past month, if you or your children have encountered this specific thing. So in the past month, have you or your children followed different rules or laws than you're accustomed to? I'll just ask you to raise your hand. Have you followed different rules or laws than you're accustomed to? Okay. In the past month, have you noticed a difference in your cultural practices and those practiced in the U.S.? Okay. Have you or your children struggled with English? Have you or your children been confused by classroom or school expectations? Okay. Have you or your children experienced feelings of disorientation? Have you or your children experienced or witnessed some form of prejudice or racism? Have you or your children experienced difficulty navigating our transportation system, roads or highways? Okay. Have you or your children had feelings of being overwhelmed by maybe sights or sounds or smells? Okay. Have you or your children felt uncertainty regarding your legal rights? Have you or your children worried about future travels? Have you or your children missed certain foods from your home country? Have you or your children felt misunderstood? Okay. Have you or your children experienced a religious, a social, or a gender slight? Have you or your children been on the receiving end of teasing or of harassment? And is there any moment where you or your children in the past month have felt unwelcome? Okay. Thank you for openly sharing some of the encounters that you've experienced over the past month. One of the things that's really important to us as we're in this room together is that we are in this room to support each other, and our hope is that you'll be able to be open and honest with us so that we can be open and honest with you to support this work and to support our children, our communal children. So one of the things that becomes very salient as we just engaged in that activity is that the feeling of unwelcomeness, the feeling of uncertainty was a constant theme. And one of the things that is very salient and very concrete in the frameworks for family engagement for all of our districts is that families should feel welcome. And we want to help to talk a little bit more about each of the districts and how we can offer those strategies to help that to be the case in your schools. So I have some amazing colleagues here with me this morning. The wonderful thing is that all of us, and I've just met Mahelet, but all of us are very close in the work that we do. Although we represent very different districts, we are all very supportive of each other and very supportive of engaging families, specifically engaging international families. So I would like to begin by introducing Ms. Robin Stern-Hamby. Robin Stern-Hamby is a family partnership specialist with the Office of Professional Learning and Family Engagement in Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia. She has been in education for over 30 years. And Robin taught learning disabled children in the public schools, and then she opened her own home tutoring business and testing business called Target Diagnostics when her children were young. In time, she returned to the public school setting, and she came back teaching technology and also reading and writing at the Fairfax Juvenile Detention Center. She works with an incredibly devoted team of individuals in Fairfax County whose primary objective is increasing family engagement in their children's education. Robin wrote a curriculum and a family-friendly guidebooks that is entitled Families Reunite and Reconnecting Families that support immigrant families through the family reunification process. And by the way, that book is used and that curriculum is used across the state. Robin is also the co-publisher for a poetry magazine titled Prospectus, a literary offering. Her son lives in Los Angeles and works in the film industry. Her daughter teaches 4th grade for the Falls Church City Public School District. And we're going to get to welcome her later, too. So please, Robin, let's please welcome Robin to the podium.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I've really enjoyed meeting the folks in the network, Kat, Mattel, and the others. And I hope what I share with you today is helpful. I'm going to share the bureaucratic view of things because I am with what we call the central office or the district office of a school system. And even though folks sometimes think we're the policy and procedures people, we're also the people that come through and provide support, especially when families aren't getting satisfaction at maybe the school level. So rather than think of us as the bureaucrats today, think of us as the group that comes out and is available to support you in your parenting role. One thing I just wanted to touch on is what all school districts have in common, since there's 4 represented here today. In the United States, all 5 to 21-year-olds have the right to attend school without tuition. Almost always transportation is free as well. We're hoping that eventually kindergarten will be included in that, and maybe even preschool across the country. Students and families have a right to privacy and confidentiality. All learning environments are safe and conducive to learning, and that you have access to your child's records, always, always. And there's more, but those are just the highlights. In Fairfax County, we have a governing body, which is the Board of Supervisors. And then in the schools, we have the school board. They don't always get along, but that's okay. But our Board of Supervisors came out recently with a statement, and it was post-election. They didn't wait too long, which was good. They knew that there was some discomfort among their community members, and they came together regardless of what, Democrat, Republican, Independent, to state that as a county, Fairfax is opening and welcoming. We are extremely diverse, if you're not familiar with us. And they said that we maintain a community culture that values and celebrates the similarities among us as well as the differences. And they further affirmed that we are, again, safe, inclusive, and welcoming, and that we provide the same in our learning environment. Our school board chose not to come out with their own statement, which kind of bugged me a little bit because my neighboring districts did. We have an interim superintendent right now, but our school board decided that the message should come from the schools. So our interim superintendent provided a message that then principals could send to the schools that basically said the same thing. Your children are safe, they're welcome, they're treated with equity, but it was optional. So not all principals sent it out, which again bothered me a little bit. But what they did include in that statement was, again, regardless of backgrounds, that our children should feel respected and they should feel safe. And when you look at what we call our mission, our vision, and we have belief statements, and we've had those for quite a number of years, they've always said that everyone thrives in a vibrant, healthful, safe, enriching, and respectful environment, and our diversity is a strength that creates resilience and innovative global citizens. And you'll hear about an IB program in another district in a little bit, but we always have strived to create global citizens, and that's not going to change. We're going to continue with that. We have a lot of things in our district of 188,000 students with over 200, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. I apologize if you couldn't hear me. We have, so over 200 language communities. We have 90,000 of our 188,000 students speak another language other than English at home, and we consider that a gift. I only speak one language, unfortunately, and not even so well half the time, so good. And one of our new requirements for our students is that they will be bilingual upon graduation. So that's a goal that we're striving for, because we know that it will empower them in the workforce and then empower them in life, certainly. But some of the things that we have in place, which are considered more central office, but which parents and families can go to and get support, is we have a position called community liaisons. And community liaisons are sometimes the first happy, smiley face a parent sees when they register their children for school. And if the children speak a language other than English in the home, or if one of the parents does, then they go through that central office registration. How many of you have been through what can be a 6 to 8 hour long day of registering your child? It can be very difficult. But the community liaison will talk about how to navigate the school system, the website, what's available to families, and we'll also talk about what's available in the county in terms of social services, or where the best shopping is, or where the closest mosque is. And they really try to connect the parents and the families with their new community. We also have parent liaisons that do the same thing, but at the school level, but they too can connect parents to other resources and refer them to other agencies as needed. We have an orientation called Getting to Know Fairfax County Public Schools. I don't think enough people take advantage of it because it means going back to the school or to a central office site one more time, but it's a 2-hour presentation, basically discussion and PowerPoint. It can also be done one-on-one with a community liaison, but it really takes you from womb to tomb in terms of the school system. And anything and everything you want to learn can be covered, especially because it is crafted to meet your needs, the needs of the audience. We have enhanced Isaw programming, which in itself is a huge lot to explain, but basically they've done a wonderful job so that our students get through the program more quickly, they graduate on time, they're able to earn credits at an earlier rate than they used to with our previous program. And we also have parent centers in about 60 of our schools, or family centers. We also have a centrally located one that's geared more towards families with special education children. And they also offer liaisons or ombudsmen, people that can, again, help with the message that the parent wants to get to the school or the school needs to get to the parent. I know I'm already taking up time here. I brought a ton of handouts. One of the handouts out front deals with what we call students' rights and responsibilities. All school districts across the country have something similar, and it's where you would go to find out sort of the conduct that's expected, the behaviors that might get a child into trouble, and the expectations. And what I brought today is sort of a cheat sheet, because what we have is a very lengthy book. So it just highlights the consequences to certain behaviors, but also it highlights what to do if, as a parent, you're not satisfied with the response you're getting from a principal or an assistant principal or someone in the central office that you are trying to get help for your child from. If you look, some of you have a handout. I did not bring enough, but I will send an electric copy to Kat, and we'll make sure everyone gets a copy. If you look at the back of the handout that some of you have, there's a chart that looks like this. It basically walks you through the typical classroom in the United States, where if there's an incident in the classroom, teasing, bullying will define a bit further. There's also handouts on that. But let's say just teasing, harassment, something happens, an incident in the classroom. Typically, a child will tell the parent and the teacher. Well, we want the teacher and the parent to communicate, obviously, and then the teacher will most likely do her own assessment of the magnitude of that issue. Was it, teasing in jest that didn't go over well, or is it something more serious? And then it's escalated to the principal, typically, after they converse with the counselors and the social workers. At that point, the principal would bring in the parent, and they would try to come up with some solution to resolve it from ever happening again. If the parent decides on the course of action, the child's informed, the other parents of the instance is informed, then typically that's where it may end with follow-up later. If the parent is not happy, then you have rights, and that the first thing that you would do is escalate it then up to, in our system, what would be an assistant superintendent of a certain region. We have 5 regions. And again, if you don't know who to go to, you can ask your parent liaison or the school counselor or the social worker, and they can walk you through the process. But the parent should always be happy with the outcome. And if you're not, then you follow whatever path you need to get to an outcome that you're satisfied with. So that's just a simple walkthrough. I just want to end my piece with, I had the pleasure of interviewing some of Miss Hamby's students in the 4th grade in Falls Church City, and about half her class are international students. What I have learned now are the third culture students. So I was asking them about their experiences. I said, I have the opportunity to talk to parents. Tell me what I should be telling them. What do you want your parents to know? Of course, there was the don't pressure us about having fun. So it wasn't don't pressure us about our schoolwork, but don't pressure us that we're not having enough fun. Parents need to learn what our curriculum is. I agree with that. Don't assume, and I heard the word assume at least 10 times from these children. I was impressed they even knew what it meant. But don't assume, help with problems, talk to the kid. Know what is happening at school. Tell your kid not to be afraid and to ask for help. Don't say you have to learn this. Consider leisure time. And then kids, they put the onus on them. Kids need to tell an adult when they are being teased, which I thought was important. And then there were some advice for teachers as well. And that was that they need to understand that they come from a different culture. There was one little girl from an African country who had only lived in African countries. And school looked very, very different to her. And technology was one thing she was not accustomed to. So don't assume I know how to use a Google Doc. And of course, be kind. Don't assume we know things. We might not have had that at our school. Don't pressure us to remember our old friends in our old school. Give us a buddy or a partner. Help us make friends. Allow us to choose some of the topics we want to study. And don't assume that we'll figure things out on our own. So I found it very educational. So I appreciate they're giving me all that advice. All of our information has been made available today. So if you wish to call me at a later time, I'm more than happy to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. From the mouths of babes. They tell us what they really want when they want us to parent them in the way that they prefer. Okay, so the next panelist that I'm going to introduce is actually works in Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. And by the way, Fairfax County in Virginia and Montgomery County in Maryland are the two largest school districts in both of those states. Number 10 in the nation and 17 in the nation. So Denise Brackley-Stultz is the Director of Family and Community Engagement in Montgomery County Public Schools. She leads a team of diverse, multilingual parent community coordinators that serve and support families and schools. After 20 years of teaching in both elementary schools and also writing curriculum and training teachers, she chooses to work to help families navigate what we know to be a very complex system, but still an excellent school system. She strongly believes that all families deserve the best for their children. Let's please join me in welcoming Denise Brackley-Stultz.
So it's my pleasure to be with you. First, I want you to think about your children and keep them in your hearts. And you always, when you meet with teachers, as a teacher myself for many years, my first question was, what are your goals for your children? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? And I think as parents, we always have to keep that first. You're their first and best teacher, and you know them better than anybody else. So when you're working in any of our schools, when you send your children to us, and especially as international families, the trust you have given us, that you leave your children with us every day. You trust that we will educate them and keep them safe, physically, socially, emotionally, all of that. And I have to say, I taught for many years in Montgomery County in a school that had 9 Isaw teachers. We had students at that time. It was very few kids were from the United States in the school. It's where I found my passion to help international families. I feel that in the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen more incidents of bullying and meanness happening than I've ever seen this is now 37 years in education. And so, when I saw those hands raised, it didn't surprise me, but it made me feel very sad. And I spend the majority of my time with families that the immigrant population, like Jennifer Love does in Montgomery County. A lot of families are so poor right now, they're barely making it. And so I will take back to the district that you are employees of the World Bank. You have, a steady job here. You're doing pretty well, and it's still the same issue. And so, we have to take that to heart in our school system. I will share that, I'm glad Robin shared, it's the same laws we're all under. All students are welcome to our schools. Montgomery County, as a county and a school district, did put out a lot of strong statements recently, that all students are welcome. We will not tolerate harassment and bullying. But I have to tell you, the numbers of incidents are growing. And so, we have this concern, and we're putting our heads together trying to figure it out. I too left a lot of information out on the table, but one is contact information, and I represent the Office of Student and Family Support and Engagement. And so my boss is Dr. Bryce. I'm in here as Family Community Engagement, but I work closely with the school counselors, what are known as pupil personnel workers, that we work on discipline, attendance, helping families. All the bullying report forms come through us, and so we want to reach out to you to help you. Your first line, and keep thinking about your child. They're always in our hearts, and I say with my team, we lead with our hearts. We're educating your children, but we have to lead with our hearts. They're young people that we are educating. You have to always talk with your child. So that's, you do that every day, but they are always your first line to know how the day is going. Is it just a one bad day, or is it a string of bad days? Is there someone who is truly bullying and harassing your child, or is there a group that is doing that? Because I'll be honest with you, we have heard some very shocking incidents that have happened in our schools this past couple of months, and it is a call to action for all of us. Then you go and start with the school. And so as a parent, you always go in and you ask those questions. You start with that teacher, your child's teachers, and you talk with counselors. You're always asking questions. You need to share information about your child with them to be helpful. Relay what the incident was and happened. It helps all of us to be involved in the school. So you go to those meetings, you find out, what's happening, and you get to know other parents. Because other parents also help us navigate school systems. The information I know, I was a teacher for many years. Kids are way grown up and out of school now, but I still needed to talk to other parents sometimes to find out what was going on. So it helps to be connected with teachers, school counselors, assistant principals, and principals in the building. What's this? Okay. If at some point you're still not, things keep happening and you're not sure of what to do, a couple of steps you can take is you can contact our office. You might be in a school in Montgomery County that has, similar to Fairfax County, we have what we call parent community coordinators. I lead that team. We are in 56 elementary schools and 21 secondary schools, not all. We would like to be in all. We are multilingual. We provide services in a variety of languages. If we don't have someone on staff who speaks that language, we will get you an interpreter, or sometimes we can find people from the community that also can provide support. If there's not a parent community coordinator in your school, you can call our office. I assign another parent community coordinator to help that parent. And that might be sitting down with you first to find out the problems, what your questions are, what we can help you resolve and solve or get to know. We can go to meetings with you at the school. We can provide you resources. We can connect you to resources within the community. So we're growing in that. I'll share that with all these big school systems, we're 160,000. We represent probably at this point about 184 countries with about 164 languages. It's an ever-changing number. About 18% of the population of Montgomery County Public Schools is in an Isaw class, but there's larger numbers of international families. And we're ever growing, and so that's a growing need. So as parents, you have to find out about stuff. And so one of the best places to always look is the school system's websites, whether you're in Montgomery, Fairfax, Arlington, wherever. But some key searches for our site is enrollment. So you have families coming in and out, you're helping other people. A lot of people ask a lot of questions about that. So if you just type in the search box enrollment, you get to that stuff. We, too, have a student rights and responsibilities booklet. I would have brought some. We're down to our last 7 in the office because it's the end of the school year and we need to reprint for next year. We also have a code of conduct. And also, I did bring a few copies because this has been a hot topic for us, a religious diversity guidelines. And we are fortunate in Montgomery County, we work with an interfaith work group that's very active. We go out and do some workshops in churches and mosques and temples to help parents know their rights and, to help you to kind of navigate if you've had some issues happen. So if you search box student rights, all of those documents come up. And they're very helpful so that you know some things should not be tolerated. And if it keeps happening, you don't have to stand by and let that not happen. Also, a key search word is bullying. And so out on the table, I did bring our bullying report form, which you can find. And I strongly encourage parents that if you feel that something has happened to your child, it continues to happen to your child, complete the form. You talk to the teacher, maybe you've talked to the teacher, you've talked to the principal, you're feeling frustrated because your child's hurting, and you can feel that sadness and you're not sure of what to do. So we, during the last 2 report card periods, we put the form in the report cards. And we did that intentionally so that we know we need the paper trail. And we also know that paper matters and putting things in writing matters. So I encourage you that if you're feeling something has happened, to please, fill in the form. But make sure you do talk to the teacher, talk with the principal, but the form helps. Also, people ask us this all the time. We get these snow days, I don't know what is happening. If you search box in the MCPS website, alert MCPS, you can sign up and you can get texts and email messages that will come directly to you when there's things happening. And another thing you can sign up for is something we call Quick Notes. And so if you type in Quick Notes, you'll get a monthly, it's kind of like a newsletter from the school system of events that are happening and things to pay attention to. Because we're moving more away from the paper world because we've overwhelmed people with paper in the past, and it doesn't work. If you want to find out more about your school, because your school's website is the best place to look. And so at the top bar on our website, if you just look at schools, you go to find a school, you can find all the academic data, you can find what we call schools at a glance, which gives a lot of information. We do a parent survey. That information is there for you, and it links to the school improvement plan. And I'll end with this, is as your child's first most important teacher, you're their advocate. You are their strongest advocate. And we have a parent advisory council, and they present workshops for parents with us. So we do parent-to-parent workshops. And they came up with this, that as a parent, we need to always ask questions. So we never stop asking questions, even if sometimes the other people look annoyed at us. We keep an open mind to what's happening within the school and to hearing out what other possibilities that could be. We visit the school often. Before we talk to staff, we organize our thoughts and get our thinking together. We stay cool, calm, and collected, because that's the best way to handle a problem. We participate in active listening, and I will share, you shouldn't be the only one that's listening. So, it goes both ways, two-way communication. Take notes. Encourage you to strongly, when you're meeting with staff and it's something serious about your child, keep notes, keep track of those notes so that you know what's happening. And always we encourage our kids to talk up for themselves. And so that's, as parents, something that we're always teaching is If something is happening, how do you handle that? What do you say? How do you respond? So thank you. I appreciate being here. And if I'll leave you with, there are blue cards out there, so if you are from Montgomery County and you want to leave me a note or a question or a way to connect back with you to help you, happy to do that.
Thank you, Denise. So now we're going to take it to the schoolhouse level. We have Alyssa Hamby, daughter of Robin Hamby, who is joining us today, and she is a teacher, a fourth grade teacher. Alyssa Hamby earned her bachelor's in interdisciplinary liberal studies and a master's of teaching in elementary education from James Madison University. Her diverse preparatory experiences included a student teaching experience at the Marymount International School in Rome, Italy. As her teaching philosophy is integral to her instructional practice and interactions with students and families, her central focus in the classroom is on building a strong, caring, and empathetic community. Alyssa is currently in her third year teaching at Thomas Jefferson Elementary School in Falls Church City Public Schools. And her current school is an International Baccalaureate primary years program. She is proud to have made many connections with the international families at her school, many of whom are representative of the State Department, World Bank, and foreign service communities. Please join me in welcoming Alyssa Hamby.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. This is a bit of a change of pace as I'm used to talking to 9-year-olds. So excuse me if I'm a bit nervous. You're bigger than what I'm used to. I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored to have the chance to talk about the kind of communities that I work with on a day-to-day basis, because it has been such a wonderful learning experience for me as well. So the school that I work with is Thomas Jefferson Elementary School within Falls Church City. Falls Church City itself is what we call, some people consider, a private public school district. It's very, very small. We have one lower elementary, one upper elementary, one middle school, one high school, and that's it. So it's a very small community, and within those districts, we house a building that the State Department houses their families at when they're here for training during a year or 2-year stays. So we have a lot of influx of students that come, that I learned this term as well, the third culture community. So we have a lot of students that have to adapt and change as they come into our school, some into American schools for the very first time. And as Jennifer said, my first priority as a classroom teacher is to build a strong community. I don't think anything else matters unless the children feel like they're safe, they're loved, and they're a part of a classroom community. So a lot of what I have to discuss today are preventative measures against harassment and bullying, because I think if these steps are taken first, then we don't see those kind of problems. And I can speak to my own personal experience that they work, so I can really apply this knowledge to myself, and I hope that you can apply it as well for your own children and for their situations. So the ways that I go about building that classroom community, well, our school is an IB school, the Interbaccalaureate program for primary year students. So just for elementary school, we follow this program. And it teaches to a central idea. Because if a student is coming from Africa, like my one, and she has to learn Virginia history in 4th grade, it doesn't matter as soon as she leaves my classroom, because what does she need to know about Jack Dewey and how he helped Thomas Jefferson in Charlottesville, Virginia? She needs to know, how does this knowledge apply to the rest of the world? So our goal is to teach from a broader lens and to teach to a central idea so that when they leave my classroom, they can think about conflict resolution rather than the Battle of Great Bridge. So that's our goal following this international program, and that I think should be a goal for most teachers, to make the content matter. And for these students coming in and out, they won't feel connected if it's something so isolated that they have no personal connection to. So a lot of what I try and do is work those lenses so that my student in Africa can connect what she experienced to what we're learning about slavery during the Civil War. My classroom does contain students with a variety of backgrounds. Like I stated, we have a few State Department families within every classroom about. And so bringing these children into this community it's a gift. They're bringing a set of knowledge that the rest of us do not have. And it's my job to make them feel special in that way, to make them feel like their voices need to be heard and their ideas need to be shared. Because the way that you develop that strong community is taking all of the various backgrounds and ideas and sharing with them with one another to make us stronger learners. And I know that transitions can be difficult, especially for elementary school students. And they can adapt a lot easier than we give them credit for, and that's what I have seen in my school. Once they've become used to moving every few years, the next time they're placed somewhere, they're like, well, I know what to do now. I know how to adjust. But at the same time, it's our job to smooth those transitions, especially if it is a child that struggles with it. So first, offering groups with our counselor. She herself has about 4 different groups right now with various age students, with all those international, the third culture kids, to make sure that they have a safe space to have conversations about the struggles that they're having or what the other kids just aren't understanding. So allowing them to have that open dialogue in school has been extremely helpful. Providing additional support when they have to adjust. This year I had 3 students that had never been in an American school. First day of school, first few minutes, we stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Those 3 kids look at me like, what is this? And I didn't even think about it. That wasn't something that crossed my mind. And that's part of my own personal bias. I assume everybody does the Pledge of Allegiance, but that is to the American flag in American schools. So the next day I was more prepared and I set them up with a buddy, had them stand up next to someone and listen to what they were saying, but they did not have to repeat it. And throughout this year, I've said, you can stand, you can sit, you do not have to stand with the class, but so they didn't feel as isolated, I had them with someone so it felt like they were learning. And that other student loved teaching them the Pledge of Allegiance. They're like, oh, it goes like this. And then I explained it to them. So it was a positive relationship for both of the students in that case, as I'm dropping everything. I had a student at the beginning of this year that had a lot of trouble adjusting. It was also his first American school, and he really missed where he came from. The classroom where he came from was 10 students. This one was 23 students. This was a school where we had 9 fourth grade classes. At his last school, he had 1 third grade class. So it was quite an adjustment to a larger area, and he felt like he was being missed out. He felt like he was drowning a bit. So after discussing with the parent, I was able to get a little bit more background knowledge. As a teacher, I meet your student and I immediately have to pick up the slack of getting to know them quickly throughout the year so that I can help them. Knowing what I need to know from you right from the start is the best support that I can be given. So being told this is what they struggled with at their last school, this is what they need. If I'm not told that at the beginning of the year, it takes me time to figure it out. So being told right from the beginning, our son is having trouble, he didn't want to go, here he is, what can we do for him? And it's difficult. It's a puzzle trying to figure out the best way to reach that child. And for him, what he felt like he was missing the most was connection. He didn't feel connected to the community. He didn't want to be connected to the community because he knew he was moving again. So for him, in that gap of time when he was in my room, I needed to find a way to make him feel that connection. So I had him meet with one of the assistant principals, help on the announcements. I had him be interviewed for something special with the students. He interviewed another teacher. I recommended after-school programs. I recommended extracurricular sports and things outside of school to feel in touch with the community because that's what he needed. He needed to feel seen. And that's what happens with these kids. If they're not able to communicate it to an adult, like, I don't feel seen, I don't feel connected here, if the parent has a bit of insight, that's so helpful for me to know right from the beginning of the school year. And then the friendship building, that can be difficult too. Again, if a student knows that they're going to be leaving soon, they sometimes say, well, what's the point? Why bother building these relationships if I have to leave them anyways? And at our school, because the international students and the moving has become such a norm, our kids do get used to it. They know, okay, they might be my friend for this year and they might leave again. Hopefully they'll come back and I'll see them once more. And what I like to stress to the students is no matter how short a relationship, a friendship may be, it impacts us and it changes who we are. And so those friendships are beneficial no matter how long they last for. And I apply this to elementary school because that's what I know, but with high school and middle school, it can be the same kind of feeling. You don't want to bother making those friendships if you know that you have to leave again. So hearing from the parents, hearing from the teachers that these relationships matter, and you're building this wide community for yourselves. My students call themselves Hambarians. for Hamby. So we say that we're the Hambarian international community. I've stayed in contact with quite a few of my students that have moved, one to Australia, one to Mexico, one to China. So keeping that contact is helpful for them and for their parents because they don't feel like they have to pick up and drop everything every single time. Knowing that they can continue to communicate with teachers and peers is helpful, and with Instagram and Facebook, it's easy. Again, talking about those connections, when the students are having trouble adjusting, I've had to be creative to try and figure out ways to make them feel adaptive and adjusted to our area. And one of the things that I tried last year was setting up pen pals with a student that had to move to Mexico with her family but did not like it there and missed home quite a bit. And then a student who had just joined my classroom who wanted to go back to where she just was. So I took the information from both of the students, I took the parents' emails, and I swapped and let the kids communicate with each other so that they could speak to one another about, well, what is so great about Thomas Jefferson Elementary School? I don't want to be here. Why did you like it? And, oh, this is why I liked living internationally. Why don't you try doing these things? So rather than just hearing from adults, to hear from their peers was a lot more meaningful. Because I can say all I want to them, but it could go in one ear out the other. I'm sure you experience the same thing. But to have them listen to a friend, someone their age, becomes a lot more meaningful to them. And then just providing some kind of send-off. And I know this does get harder with middle school and high school, but knowing that they had a family here and that they had a community that made them feel loved and accepted is very meaningful to that student. So tomorrow actually is one of my students' last days. She's leaving a month before the end of the school year. Her mom's coming in, she's bringing treats, which everybody loves, and we're having a bit of a send-off for her, a goodbye, as she moves back to Africa, to another country where her father is stationed. So having that acknowledgement of you were here, you mattered, we'll miss you, is very, very strong messages to send to our kids. And when the bullying, when the harassment and the teasing does occur, the first thing I want to help students do is identify, is it actually bullying? This is an issue that we've had in our school and many schools around us. Kids assume that's bullying, but the actual definition of bullying is an extended period of time with constant harassment. What we tend to see more so are isolated incidents, which is teasing. And it's hard for students to identify the difference sometimes, but our district and our administrators, when they hear the word bullying, a full-on investigation is conducted. So if a student uses the word bullying, we have to completely research and figure out what occurred, what happened, talk to all the adults, the children involved. If it's a case of teasing, that's something that's more manageable. As much as it still pains us to hear about those situations and what the children have to go through, it's identifying it in a way where the kids can see it not as a constant harassment that's occurring to them, but as an isolated incident, and we can figure out what the cause was. And what I've seen at our school most of the time is that it's miscommunication, misinterpretation, or a lack of education. The other students don't understand always what it means to come from this other country, what it means to live internationally. They may not understand their religion. They might not understand why they have to wear certain clothing. That lack of education, especially in elementary school, can come off kind of rough. It can come off as teasing, as what they consider harassment. So helping the children to understand that this is the way that they live, and you need to try and see from their perspective, and they didn't quite mean what they may have said. And of course, there are times where the kids know exactly what they're saying. And what needs to happen then is re-education, making sure that the students understand why this is so harmful and how it's hurting not only the other person, but our community that we've built together. And there is, like my mom was saying, that whole chain of the way that we go through with the communication piece. If a student experiences something, what happens next? And when those cases come to me, if a student tells me that they're being bullied, the first thing I ask is, who's involved, what happened, tell me your side. The second thing I do is go listen to the other side, because a lot can be skewed in perspective in translation. So the first thing I want to do is hear all the different sides to the story, and then I weigh my options. Do I need to take this to the counselor? Do I need to contact the parents immediately? Do I need to talk to my administrator? So weighing the gravity of the situation, see is it something that we can take care of in-house within our community, our Hambarian community, or is this something where I need to seek more support? And I've experienced multitudes of both of those. If it's something very isolated, it tends to be something we can take care of right in that moment. You don't want to let it sit. You want to take care of it right away and make sure the students understand the consequences of their actions. And I always communicate to the parents what has occurred. And what I appreciate most from parents is that they listen to what the adult, what the teacher, the professional is telling them, and also listen to what their child says, but listen to the adults that were around and heard the variety of perspectives. What can be frustrating sometimes as a teacher is you do all this legwork, you find out what happened, you provide this information to the teacher, and they tell you you're wrong. And that can be troublesome because we want to work as a team. So if the parent and I are not agreeing on certain things, I want to hear what the parent has to say, but I also need to be heard as well. So just listening to the teacher, the professionals involved, and again, like we were saying, always seek more. If you're not happy, please seek more and go to the administrators, go to other levels to figure out how they can best support if you're not happy with what the classroom teacher has provided. And then one thing that I'm constantly trying to do as a professional, as a human, is understand my own personal bias and make sure that I am providing these students with an equitable learning environment. Like the Pledge of Allegiance, I didn't even think about it. So reflecting on my own teaching and the way that I treat the students in my classroom is something that I constantly need to do to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of all my students and providing the safe space for them. And professionally, that's something that our entire county is constantly trying to do. Falls Church City has brought in diversity specialists to come speak to us so that we can start to recognize what that looks like. Because those international students, the third culture kids, become such a norm to us, we don't always think what it looks like from their perspective coming into this community. We need to constantly ask ourselves and re-ask ourselves, are we giving them an equitable learning environment? Are we making this a suitable home for them while they're here in Virginia, in America? Thank you. Awesome.
We hear this resonating and the theme going through the conversations that we're having amongst the districts, that parents, you are your children's first teacher, but you are also teachers to the school. You're teachers to the teachers, so that the teachers are able to know exactly what's happening with your child and what your child's strengths are. Our last panelist I'm going to introduce is actually affiliated with the World Bank. Malahat Beg Amin is the lead senior clinician for the Family Consultation Service of the Family Network at the World Bank and also the Domestic Abuse Prevention Program. She has spent over 20 years working with families with the effects of trauma, both in the U.S. and overseas. She received her Master's of Science degree from Columbia University in social work and in international social welfare. She is certified in traumatic stress and domestic violence from the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress. She's a licensed psychotherapist in private practice in D.C. and also McLean, Virginia, and works with adolescents, couples, and families. Mahlat is also the mother of twin teenagers who spent much of their young life overseas as well as in Fairfax County Public Schools. Please join me in welcoming Mahlat.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you all. So, our speakers so far have given you clear guidelines how you, as parents, can access school systems to effectively. Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll move in. Yeah, that's good. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, our speakers have given you clear guidelines how you as parents can effectively address incidents that happen in schools and be able to get the support you need. Along the lines of our theme in terms of engaging, equipping, and empowering you, I would like to offer you information and tools how you as parents can engage your kids and be able to attend to any of the issues that come up after these kinds of painful experiences. Okay? Okay.
So getting children in the frame of mind is an important part of coping. We are living in an environment where so much of what we hear has changed. And I think we have an incredibly unique opportunity as parents to be able to enter into those conversations with our kids and begin to talk, re-engage our children on values. Children need language and context to help them not only cope, but also become people who speak up against bias, hate, and intolerance. You want to discuss why words hurt. Building context around certain words helps children better understand the power of words have to hurt others. So one way to help our children is to be prepared to deal with hurtful comments and to prepare them with ready responses. These are just a couple of responses that might be helpful. That offends me. I don't find that funny. I'm surprised that to hear you say that. These phrases can be used to speak up against bias in a simple and straightforward manner. Sometimes they can open up the dialogue and often allow people and children in general to challenge bias and take a vocal stand. Interrupting bigotry by the use of simple questions like the ones on this slide can be helpful. What do you mean by that? That is offensive. What point are you trying to make by saying that? Using that word as a put down offends me. These are just some simple phrases that you may be able to share with your kids so they have some tools when they're going into the school environment and facing issues. So this material I found to be very helpful. It comes from the Tolerance website. It's tolerance.org, and they go through a model of interrupting, questioning, educating, and echoing to help you help your kids. So now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit because the impact of hurtful experiences on children is an incredibly important topic to discuss. Much of what I'll be sharing with you comes from the National Institute of Mental Health. Trauma is defined as an emotionally painful, shocking, stressful, and/or life-threatening experience. If not addressed, trauma can have long-term effects to our sense of safety and our emotional well-being. Okay. It may be helpful to understand some of the neurobiology behind stress responses. When we perceive a threat, our brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze response. These responses are survival mechanisms to keep us safe. However, if a threat or trauma is not processed, or if the trauma is repeated, these responses can become generalized. So the fight, flight, freeze may become the default position to many situations and weaken the child's ability to effectively cope. When children are faced with a traumatic experience, their reaction is usually both physiological as well as psychological. Their heart rate may increase, they may begin to sweat, to feel agitated, hyper-aroused, and become emotionally upset. These reactions are distressing, but they are normal. It's our body's way of protecting us from danger. However, some children who have experienced a traumatic event will have long-term lasting reactions that can interfere with their physical and emotional health. Culture is so powerful and important. Culture can influence the ways in which children and their families respond to traumatic events. Culture can also impact the ways in which we experience and express distress. As I said to you, I come from a South Asian culture. We teach our children to internalize negative emotions. It's exactly what we don't want to do when they've experienced a traumatic event. We want them to be able to express themselves, to be able to get it out, and to be able to receive the support they need. So there are often times where in cultures, we also don't feel that it's important to seek help outside our own community and sometimes even outside our own home. And we know parents aren't experts, so we have to get help when we need to deal with a specific issue that we just aren't equipped to deal with. There are a number of ways that children respond to trauma. For children who are under the age of 5, and I think there were quite a few in this audience, you can see that on the slide the following responses, like clinging to a parent, crying, thumb sucking, bed wetting, a lot of regression in very young children is what we see when there's been a difficult experience that they're attempting to process on their own. For children 6 to 11 years of age, they may isolate, shut down, have sleep problems, complain about physical problems, do poorly in school, and become fearful. These are all symptoms of a traumatic experience, a difficult, painful experience that they are trying to sort out, and it's their body's way, and their reactions are normal, and yet they are also signals that they need help. Yeah? And for adolescents, you can see acting out behavior. We see a lot of acting out behavior in the form of aggression, depressed mood, isolating behaviors, and a loss of interest. A lot of teenagers already tend to isolate themselves at an age where they want to separate and individuate from parents. But this is a point at which you begin to see a pattern. You really want to engage your kids. You don't want them to stay in their room and just kind of shut down. You want to be able to intervene in an effective way and let them know that you're available for them. Okay, so if trauma is left unattended, children may develop post-traumatic stress disorder. However, this is different for children than for adults. And some of the key differences for children are in the criteria. Children must have 3 of these symptoms: re-experiencing of the event, an avoidance or a numbing, and some arousal symptoms. Younger kids sometimes mix up the sequence of events or not be able to recall the time periods when trauma has happened. And adolescents may exhibit impulsive or aggressive behaviors more than younger kids. The point here is that what we hear about PTSD looks very different for kids, right? And so what we want to be able to do to mitigate PTSD, because if you have experienced a trauma, there's no guarantee that you have to develop PTSD unless you leave it alone and you don't attend to it. But there's really good studies that suggest that immediate intervention within the first 30 days can be extremely effective in mitigating PTSD. Yeah? Okay. So I'm giving you a lot of information that may be worrisome, but I also want to share that on a positive note, resilience. Resilience is our ability to recover and return to a level of functioning present before the adversity hit. There are many studies that show that kids are able to recover when they possess certain positive resources, such as a positive sense of self and the future, talents, hobbies, special skills, the ability to regulate. They're able to ask help from adults. They have a nurturing, stable environment, and they have caregivers who are there for them and are very supportive. So post-traumatic growth refers to the brain's ability to integrate lessons learned after exposure to trauma. Much of this comes from the concept of neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to adapt and create new neural pathways that allow us to grow in our own functionality. This is actually very powerful. I work with trauma survivors in the work that I do, and the the amazing experience that I am witness to is that I see many of my survivors grow in so many different ways and transform their life. They become very empowered. Many of them become altruistic and give back into the community. So they gain a certain kind of insight and certain kind of experience that helps them to be almost different people in the most positive way. Yeah. Okay. So when a situation has occurred that's destabilized your family, parents should identify and address their own emotions and their own feelings. A lot of our speakers have already talked about this. This is going to allow them to deal with their kids more effectively and not let their own emotions get in the way of helping their children. In general, you as parents do what parents do. You explain what happened, let your kids know that you love them, and it wasn't their fault. You do the best to take care of them, and you validate their feelings. Even when those feelings sound very negative and it's hard for you to hear that, you still stay with them, you listen, you empathize, and you repeat back to them that you hear them. Those are some really critical points that we need to understand, because different cultures may want to shut down the negative feelings, and crying's not good for you, and it's not okay to focus on the negative. But in actuality, when you're dealing with the possibility that there is trauma, you really want to get in there. You want to dig in, and you want to be available, and you want all those feelings to be explicated, not internalized. Okay. Okay. A couple of do's and don'ts on the slide, and really so much of this is about trusting your instinct as parents. Help children to feel in control when possible, letting them choose and make some decisions for themselves. Don't dismiss emotion or get angry because they may express strong emotions. I know from my own family, it's hard for me to hear when my kids are sad or they're feeling bad, and I'm a therapist, and it's already hard for my kids because I'm always wanting to talk through things. But it is actually incredibly important to allow them a safe space to be able to express, right? And it's hard. It's hard to listen to it. It's hard to be quiet and be thoughtful and hear everything that's going on and not assume. Some of our speakers have also said that don't assume that you understand. Don't assume that you carry the same values as your kids. Your kids are individuals. They have their own thoughts, at least in teenagers. They want to be very different from you. So to be respectful of all of that. So being sensitive to your children under stress and respecting their decisions is important. Remind children that you love them, support them. Some children may need help from a mental health professional. Know when it's time to get help. I think that's a really critical part of understanding that you can go so far, but the next step may need to be with someone who is trained in dealing with that. And most therapists who are working with kids have very unique ways of engaging them. So it's not necessarily always you're sitting in a couch and therapist is asking you questions. It's usually engaging in play, writing, drawing. A lot of art is used, and kids begin to express, and they process, and then they recover, which is incredible, and it happens. Not everyone is destined to be holding an emotion and an experience all their life if it's addressed early. Okay? So that's all I've got, and these are some trauma resources, and this is some contact information about our program. The Family Consultation Program is under the WBFN, and we provide short-term counseling for spouses and families. It's a free service. We also provide some couples work, and I also work with the Domestic Abuse Prevention Program, which provides crisis intervention for people who are dealing with domestic abuse. And so we're all under the Health Services Department. The Health Services Department is for staff. They have a counseling department who will deal with all staff issues. related to psychological well-being. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Malahat. We are now going to move into some very valuable time, the opportunity for you to ask questions of our panelists. We have 2 microphones that are set up in the center of the room. We also have passed out index cards, so each of you should have had an index card at your chair when you came in. We welcome you to the microphone to ask a question of our panelists, and we also welcome you alternatively to put a question on your index card if you prefer to submit it anonymously, and we have some volunteers who are going to be able to collect those index cards. So if you have a question, please feel free to come up.
Hi, thank you very much for the insightful presentations. I have a question regarding how to talk to children about their religious beliefs and also about disagreeing with the curriculum, for example. So can you tell us some practical advice or things that we can do with our children? Thank you.
Okay. So the question is around religious beliefs. So Denise is going to go ahead and respond from Montgomery County.
So I do welcome you to pick up our religious diversity guide out there, no matter where your kids go to school, because it's based on federal law. And so I would encourage you when you're talking about with your children about religion and what is your religion, that's, you as a family, where you worship and why that's important to you. If your child is experiencing at school only talking about one kind of religion in some class, that's a total violation, at least in Montgomery County, of our curriculum and in most school systems throughout the country. And because no one should be put through that. And so that's a place where you do have to speak up for your child, because it's difficult, especially if you're a first grader, to kind of take on the teacher about what they're teaching. We do have high school kids that do that, and they don't have a problem with it. But that is something that needs to be brought to the attention to that teacher and to that principal, because it should be a balanced approach of talking about religion. So religion can be talked about in schools. We have a lot of Muslim students in Montgomery County who also pray during the day. It is up to us to find a location for them to support that. And so we do need you to communicate with us. And so sometimes that's children speaking up for themselves, but a lot of times that we really rely on parents being able to share with teachers and principals and school staff, what is important to you and your family and how we can help you. But if your child's coming home and there's been instruction and talking about religions, and if it's not been in a balanced approach and your child feels left out or less than, or kids are saying things mean because they're not of that religion, then that is that is bullying. That's when that has to be brought up. That is, a more serious issue, because it can be very hurtful. And I will share with you again, we have experienced things this past year in our school system, student to student, that I have never heard of in 30 years. So we partner with you as parents, and you are your voice for your kids. And so a lot of times we can't act on those things unless we know about them. And principals cannot be in every classroom every day. And so, this fabulous teacher, I wish every child had her, for their teacher. But if you have multiple kids, one's great and another one you've got issues. And so you have to speak up.
And with that, if there is a theme that is offensive, that you find as a parent is offensive or uncomfortable for you or your family, that would also be an instance in which, as Denise mentioned, the recommendation would be to go directly to the principal with an email or a letter with regard to specifically what it was about the curriculum that your child has shared with you that made your child or your family uncomfortable, and then request a meeting with the administration to discuss the concern. Okay. Thank you. If you could come to the microphone so it can be, since this is being recorded.
I have a question that I realize the answer will be very different for different ages. My
Sure.
son is 5, going to kindergarten, so that's the age I'm interested in, and it has to do with how much should I, as a parent, encourage or not encourage my son to solve potential conflicts with his colleagues. Instead of going to the teacher. And also, I would never do it, but what would happen, what should I do if a parent contacts me and says that they have whatever issue with my son? Should I respond in any way, or just say, we can only deal through a teacher or through school with this?
Okay. All right, so we're going to pass this one to Robin.
Well, let me see I'd like help answering it, however. Okay, where did you go? Okay, so I think it's always good to teach even a 5-year-old how they can respond to a situation, and Mahatma had given us information and the website, and there's also a handout out there. There's a 5 years old, maybe a little too young for this, but there's a little pocket, I don't know what to call this, actions that kids can take. So one, I think you can give the child the words, help them come up with the words for when something happens, so that they at least feel somewhat empowered over the situation. In terms of when do you go to a teacher versus going to a parent directly, I actually get myself in trouble with that one, because sometimes I'd like to think that it can be handled outside of the school. If something has happened and it's not a big deal, but you don't want it to become one, like a one-time tease and you want to nip it in the bud, it would be nice to approach the other family and say, this has happened. How do you think we should handle this with our children? And I'd appreciate the others joining in. And you don't necessarily need to make a big deal out of it, because I know oftentimes parents worry, well, if I take it to the teacher or to the principal, my child will become a marked child. I guarantee that doesn't happen. Parents sometimes, all parents sometimes, and same with me, we worry that we don't want to cause too much friction in the school. We don't want to become one of the parents that, teachers look out for. We don't want them to treat our child any differently. Good teachers, good administrators do not do that. They are full partners with you. So that didn't really answer your question, but it gave you some options.
So as a teacher, when I've experienced exactly what you're discussing, if there was an issue that the parents first acknowledged and discussed amongst themselves, as soon as it started to impact their learning, they took it to me. And I think that's a good strategy to go about. As soon as it impacts your student's day at school, that's something the teacher needs to know. And I always thank parents, thank you for sharing this information with me, because it's always helpful to know when creating a seating arrangement, not to put those two students together, when I'm creating small groups, not to put those students together if I know that there's a pre-existing conflict between the two. So it's good information to have, but I know that children hesitate because they don't want their teacher to know. They want to be able to handle it on their own. They don't want to have to bring it to the teacher because they maybe don't want to get the other student in trouble. And that's something that they battle in their own minds, especially with younger students. They don't want to get the other kids in trouble because then they'll be marked that way as a tattle. And that's not what we want at all. And that's not how teachers should treat it. They should treat it as information helping for that student's learning environment, making sure that they're giving them a safe space where they feel heard and they feel acknowledged for what has occurred. And again, just reach out to the teachers if you feel like it's necessary, if it's helpful for your child's learning environment, definitely.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, ladies. Next question.
So there was a lot of discussion today about how Maryland and Virginia schools work, public schools work. What sort of oversight do the counties exercise over private schools? And how do we cope and how do we approach issues of, let's say, bullying there? And bullying can be in the classroom by children, and bullying can also be by teachers.
Right. So public schools have no jurisdiction over private schools.
But what about the
None.
counties themselves, the county governments?
No,
Those
they do
schools are
not.
based there.
They do not.
They do not.
They do not.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you you need to deal directly with the administration, the leadership of the private school. If it's connected to a larger organization, which sometimes private schools are, depending, sometimes they're religious-based or, there's a hierarchy for them, they do not. So it's because they don't receive public funds.
So they are the only private schools that have any affiliation with an LEA, which is a local education, are charter schools, but also what we call non-public schools. So non-public schools are schools that are providing specific services for students with special needs. So they may fall under the umbrella of being private schools, but that is the only type of communication or liaison work that happens with schools that are private.
But to be allowed to set up a school and to operate a school, whether it's a charter school or not, I'm assuming that you need to meet certain requirements, right? You have, for example, health regulations, etc., building code requirements, etc.
They
There's
do,
nothing?
but they're not overseen by the county government.
So at that point, they would have to follow federal guidelines. So federal guidelines related to all of the titles. So Title VI to make sure that they are meeting the needs of students and families. Title II to ensure that they are meeting the needs of students with disabilities. But those, and IDEA, which does cover for all students in any jurisdiction or in any type of school. But the Health and Human Services code and aspect of that is not at all related to the public school system. Great question. Okay, we had a question on a card. The question is, are the same rules applicable to DC public schools? So a lot of what we have spoken about relative to public school systems, as DC public schools is also a public school system, they have similar policies and procedures in place when it comes to student code of conduct, bullying procedures, and reporting bullying. And if there is a question specifically about something that is happening with your child in DC public schools, we would recommend that you communicate specifically with the administrator or that you go to the specialized office around student services. Student services in some districts is the office that handles bullying and harassment issues. I know in Montgomery County, it's the Office of Family and Community Engagement. So you want to do that inquiry to find out which is the office that can provide you the support. I know that we are running short on time, and we really want to be mindful of the fact that you have spent your afternoon here with us. Please know that the entire panel will be here to continue to answer questions and have individual conversations. I'd like to draw your attention to two things. One is that there is an evaluation that we ask that you complete. This evaluation will offer the World Bank Family Network the opportunity to continue to develop seminars that are appropriate for your needs, seminars that are going to bring information and be able to engage you as families that will be able to support you in supporting your students. So please take a moment to fill out that evaluation. And then the last thing is just a reminder that there are a multitude of resources available on the table outside, resources around teaching tolerance. In the packet that you received, Equip Empowering Parents, there is a long list of web resources that are available to you as well that range from national PTA and ways that you can be engaged as a parent to psychological services that are available and information around teaching tolerance and supporting students in their social justice mindset. I again would like to thank Kat and the team for having us today, and thank you for spending your afternoon here.
Thank you all.